You'll never do anything scarier, but you'll also be more fulfilled than you could ever imagine. There's some magic in that. I was in my later 30s and I realized that if I didn't go do what I was going to do right then, I wasn't totally certain that I would come back around to that same decision. It was important for me to just say, you know what? I like to help the best attorneys get the cases that need the best attorneys.
Welcome to the Deep Specialization Podcast, the show where we blend focus, strategy, and client intimacy in order to scale and simplify our businesses and our lives. I'm your host, Corey Quinn. Let's jump into the show. Today, I'm joined by my old-time friend and the founder of Marketing 6, Brandon Wheeler. What's up, B-Dog?
Hey, Corey. How you doing, man?
Good. Listen, I'm super excited to have you on the show. You and I are friends. We go back, I think, 10 years now when I joined Scorpion.
Yeah.
Your story from a high level is, we met in 2015, but you were there at Scorpion on day one, if I remember, right?
Yeah,
and so,
day one.
I'm super excited for folks to hear your story about what it was like to be there at the early days, helping Scorpion go from 0 to 1 and to 100 million and beyond. You also left Scorpion at a certain point, took a little bit of a risk, bet on yourself, and started your own firm and now have achieved amazing success. So I can't wait to unpack this story, share some old memories with an old friend. And why don't you start by just introducing yourself and share with the audience a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having me here. It's an honor. And, it's great to see you again.
Yeah.
We do go way back, which is awesome. And, my journey here was definitely interesting. So, I'd gotten my start back in 2001. So about 24 years ago now. I can't believe I'm that old, but 2001. And me and a couple of my buddies had this idea that we were going to start a business. And we didn't actually know what business we were going to start back then. And we were talking about all kinds of things, this idea of the internet and internet marketing, because it was still in its infancy back then. That was way back when you'd be receiving those AOL discs in the mail and 100 free hours. We had one of the guys who could code, and then there were two of us who figured we could probably sell it, and we were going to build websites. And that's how we were going to either make our way through college or start a business and stake our claim. And so in one of the spare bedrooms of one of the guys' houses, we started Scorpion. And that was an interesting time. We had to first decide kind of like who our clientele were going to be and who we were going to try and sell these websites to, right? And when you're 19 years old and you don't really know much about life, you kind of have this idea that doctors and lawyers maybe have a lot of money.
Yeah. That's what they told us growing up, right?
That's right. They drove the nice cars and had the big houses. So we would order Yellow Pages. I don't know if your listening audience remembers what those are, but
yes. Those things you use to boost up a chair, right?
Well, exactly. And put your monitors on in today's world. But, they used to show up at your doorstep, but you would only get your local Yellow Pages, like whatever that, your zip code, fell in. So we used to have to order them from all over Southern California, and we just have stacks of them sitting there. And what was interesting was, in Rustin's house and in his dad's house, in his spare bedroom, or actually it was in his bedroom for a long time, we used to have to share one phone line. So we only had like a certain amount of time we could be on the phone because his dad worked from home. And so we were sharing time.
You were sharing the line. So two of you were sellers, one coder. By the way, Rustin, for the audience, is one of the co-founders of Scorpion, was one of the guys.
Yeah.
And is today's the CEO, right? So he's still at Scorpion, big part of that growth. But so it was you, Rustin, and who is the third person? I'm curious.
Peter.
Oh, Peter Webb. Okay.
Yeah.
So that you guys you were sharing the phone line with Rustin's dad, Papa Kretz.
Well, exactly. Papa Kretz. That was him. It was Papa Kretz.
Yeah.
And so he worked from home doing some kind of sales as well. So we would just share the phone line. And it was also the fax line And back then, to get contracts,
yeah,
because
of
most
course.
people didn't have emails, there was always faxes. So we would sit there and just cold call out of the yellow pages. And
So wait, so you call up an attorney. What would you say?
so it was interesting. I was actually thinking about this because I had a feeling you might ask me. And
Yeah.
I remember the very first sale that I ever made. And it was an attorney in San Diego. Her name was Nancy Rick Jones. And she picked up the phone, which wasn't always normal. Sometimes you get the receptionist or the paralegal or whatever, and you have to try and battle your way through that. And being a young kid, not having very much sales experience, it was tough to sometimes get them. But I got her on the phone, and she was the sweetest person ever. And I said, Nancy, I want to tell you about the future. There's this thing called the internet. And she had almost no idea what the internet was. I said, the yellow pages where you put an ad in and people will find you. Well, that's what the internet's going to be. It's going to be where everyone's going to become a marketplace, and it's going to take over the world. And I was pitching the dream of the internet 25 years ago, and she was a very trusting lady. She trusted this kid, and she sent me a check for $1,500, which was a million back then.
That's awesome.
It was a running joke that we had because I had my first apartment and I didn't have a refrigerator because we were all so poor, living at home and scraping by. And with that commission, I got my first refrigerator.
Oh, yes. So wait, it was $1,500. And what did she buy specifically from you?
So you would get a custom made website, ground up. Yeah. And back then that was the only way you could get a website. So it was a custom coded website, and it was hideous. They were so bad. They'd have like the American flags waving in the corner sometimes.
Oh yeah, the GIFs, like the automated, like the animated GIFs. Oh yeah.
That was the only way to do it, and it made it pop. That was what everyone, that's what everyone wanted to see. So she got a website, and I'm pretty sure we included hosting either for a year or maybe even indefinitely, but it was definitely for at least a year. And then I think it was somewhere around $50 a month for like your subscription. But back then, because the marketplace just didn't exist, this is in the days of Yahoo, Alta Vista, and Ask Jeeves, these search engines that were emerging, and Google was actually the baby back then. Didn't really have a foothold on the search game. So as Google was emerging and people were kind of clamoring and jumping in on that search engine, they created the best search engine. And the way that the citations and the links and the references created the index and who ranked top page one, it was just smarter than everyone else. Because the other guys, things like Yahoo search and Alta Vista, they would have curators, people who actually curated the search results, which sounds a little fishy, right? Anyway, we used to be able to guarantee that we could get you page one rankings within a week. We'd be top of page one. Give us 1 week. We'll get you up there. No problem.
Awesome. So back then, you guys were selling effectively SEO. I mean, you may not have called it SEO back then, but was that part of the package? You get a website and we get you calls, or is it just websites?
It was mainly website and hosting, and the SEO was just a byproduct of it because it was easy to get people ranking. And as time went on, the product evolved, and the search space became a much larger marketplace, and it just grew exponentially, like just boom, 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 and it just like so massive so quickly that then the game became how do you get and show up at the top of page one for whatever your major search terms are, and what's that going to do for you? And this is back way before the days of paid advertising. This is just organic, because that's all that existed back then.
So you got your first sale, $1,500, Nancy from San Diego. How long till your second sale?
Oh, I would love to sit here and brag and say it was the next week, next month. I don't even remember. I just remember the first. You always remember your first.
Of course.
But then the list it all becomes a blur after that.
Yeah. I guess so. So how did you guys build? I mean, selling one website is one thing, but building a business and growing it is another thing. Like how did you guys end up getting momentum, like building momentum in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of our drive and hunger to kind of like do something. And I'm going to give all the credit where credit's due, and that's to Rustin. He's an absolute beast when it comes to having that hunger and that drive. The guy's got a work ethic like I've never seen.
Even till today. Like
Even today. Whether he even needs to or not, it doesn't matter. That's just who he is in his DNA. And it's one of his, it's one of his differentiators, is the truth. I've never seen anyone work harder. And he's been a dear friend of mine for most of my life. And I respect the heck out of him.
Walk us through. So you're building this business, Scorpion. At the time, I think it was called Scorpion Design. Is that right?
That's right. Scorpion Design. That's right.
Yeah, I knew that. And you were calling these law firms and these doctors. How did you guys end up sort of focusing on attorneys? Like, why not just work with any small business? Like, where did the focus on attorneys come from, do you think?
I would say it's because we had this amazing vision of deep specialization. But it kind of went back to what we originally said about, we kind of knew that doctors and lawyers, had money, or so we thought, and that was a good market. And we started making some headway into it. And back then, Martindale Hubble was the 800-pound gorilla in the space. They were the biggest. They had the directory, and they were just the big monster. And then later came Thomson Reuters, which was fine law. And Scorpion was always the thorn in everyone's side. And we kind of liked that. We were the anti-them, and those behemoths and tried to come in and buy us, I'm sure, multiple times. And we were always the younger, faster, hungrier, our designs were better. We had a fun culture, and then we were all just a bunch of friends. So we kind of just stuck to what we knew, and we eventually kind of branched into different verticals, of course. But early on, and something maybe a lot of people don't know, was the hospital systems that we had gotten into. That was actually how we built the platform. The Scorpion CMS that everyone still uses in today's world. That's a Scorpion client, and some very, very smart people. And Rustin had the vision. He's like, we're going to build this CMS. And back then, you kind of had to build your own CMS. That was just the way it was, because WordPress didn't exist. There was nothing, and so you had to build your own. And so we built our own, and we had our own proprietary platform to do all the fun stuff that we wanted to do. But that was kind of the transition. Then now we had a hospital network, and it was, I want to say it was St. Joe's. Maybe that wasn't the first, but either way, it was a big one. And we had no business selling that back, but we did. And, we got it, and then it became, Scorpion Healthcare became a thing, and it was a big part of the company's growth.
At what point did sending cookies become a part of the sales strategy?
Well, okay. It's really funny because, so Corey, when you came in and you were this hotshot marketing guy, it was like, I remember seeing you for the first time walking in there, and I was like, who's this guy? You had a certain swagger about you that I thought was very interesting. But anyone who's met you knows that you're just about the most kind, relatable, nicest, easiest person to talk to. So it was easy to kind of become a friend very quickly. Yeah. But I think I had told you that I saw you come in and you got your office, and you were we had a CMO for the first time. There's a C-level marketing position, which we were all like, what is this? Doing our own marketing for us? Like, what is that? We had no idea, right? We market for other people. The concept was foreign. We were, again, this baby company that became an adolescent that was now maturing and becoming something that is so utterly impressive in the space today, that when you came in, I feel like that was the mark when we kind of moved into that maturity stage. And the idea of only waiting for inbound leads and trying to go outbound for this concept was not foreign to us, because some of the original guys who were there, like me and Peter and Brian Blades and some of the guys who were there early on, that was normal for us. Cold calling, just pound the phones. So I feel like that was when we realized that we needed to be able to get people's attention, right? We needed to differentiate ourselves a little bit. We were kind of known in the space by this point. We would go to all the trade shows and speak at the conferences, and I would do a lot of speaking at different events and stuff too. But we wanted to be able to get directly to the decision maker and make it a very warm welcome. And that's what the cookies or gifts or whatever you want to do, those uniquely striking impressions, that's really what they do.
I remember, just a side note, one memory I have of you early on is we would send out these video brochures, right?
Yeah.
And I remember recording in one of the offices, you and the other PI sales guys, a personalized video. I'm not sure if you remember this, but
I do.
Yeah, right. So what we did is we had these video brochures, which is basically like a brochure, but it's a video player that you would open it, you'd send to an attorney, you'd open it up, and there was B-Dog, Brandon right there with a video message directly to the recipient, right? So we had to go and record all these. And I remember you were doing this, and you were one of the few guys. I remember I felt like an outsider at Scorpion. Like, the guys at Scorpion, everyone grew up together. They all went to high school, but you were one of the guys who kind of made an extra effort to be really nice to me, which I appreciate. But I remember in that room, we were laughing about these videos that we were creating because it was almost ridiculous that we were doing this. But in any event, that's a fond memory of mine. So when I got to Scorpion, what I learned was that Rustin, the founder, would be the CMO, but like once a quarter, or maybe once every 6 months, he would go and hire some PR agency to create some brochure and send it out to like a list of like 10,000 businesses. And that was the effect of the marketing.
That's right.
And in fact, he had sent out cookies before using a vendor. When I saw that, and I talked to some of you guys, and you said, yeah, that really makes a difference. That's when we go, okay, this is interesting. And we went from every once in a while sending a gift to every quarter.
Yeah, part of our marketing budget and effort. It was a game changer, is the truth. And I'll tell you, before cookies, we found, I remember there was a firm we were trying to reach, and I think it was in Houston, Texas. And we found this lady who would make these macaroons, these handmade macaroons, right? I don't remember her name, but she had this awesome little shop, and she could make them obviously whatever flavor, color, but then she could airbrush messages on the top or graphics. And so we're like, hey, would you spray a scorpion on top of that and send it over to this attorney? And that was the beginning of that process. And it landed us, oh man, the ROI on that was insane. It was such a cool idea. And then a lot of people followed suit once they kind of saw what we were doing, but it was so fun. It was a fun time back then.
At some point, you decided to leave Scorpion. Like you'd been there day one, the yellow pages, you built up, you were senior vice president of sales, focusing on personal injury attorneys. You had a lot of success there. At a certain point, you left. What was the timing behind leaving? Many people ask me, why did I leave Scorpion? What was the timing? I'm curious for you, like what was the timing about?
Yeah, and I definitely want to hear your story too. I don't know that I know it per se. I mean, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts and stuff. I don't know if you've talked about it, but maybe I missed it. But my timing was, Scorpion had gone through an obscene amount of growth, and it was getting huge, very, very huge. I, in my heart, really, really enjoyed working directly with my clients. I liked personal relationships. I liked knowing my clients. I liked having their cell phone numbers. I liked being able to talk to them. I liked being able to hear about what was going on in their firm. I liked knowing if what we were doing was making an impact in their family or helping people beyond just the surface level. I'm a senior vice president of sales. I run a team. I have a quota. I gotta sell a bunch of things every single month. Like that was fine. And then we worked our butts off for a very long time, a little bit to the detriment of my kids. They took a hit on that for quite some time as we were really trying to establish this as a force in the marketing space, which we did. And I realized that it was starting to get to a place that I wanted to, you can kind of jokingly call it like a Jerry Maguire moment, where it's like less clients, better relationships, more connecting. I just felt like I needed to go back to my roots is really what it was. And, in my life at the time, this was kind of just pre-COVID, I made a very risky decision, which I'm sure a lot of people have talked about, people that are in the same place that I was in, where it's like, you've been doing this for a long time and you're very good at it, and that's great. But you also don't know, like, I didn't have to manage a lot of the other pieces of the organization. I just didn't have to touch them.
Right.
And, you learn very quickly when you go out on your own that certain skill sets, aren't organic and naturally, my strong suit. So I had to find some really good people to work with very, very quickly. And I've been blessed to have an amazing team. I have a business partner as well, Daniel Lopez, who is honestly, he's been a lifesaver for me because he is really, really good at everything that I'm really, really bad at.
Ah, beautiful. Hey, it's Corey. After scaling an agency from 20 million to 150 million, I've discovered something profound. The most successful agencies aren't trying to serve everyone. They dominate one specific vertical market. I've created the Deep Specialization Accelerator, a 90-day group program that transforms generalist agencies into sought-after vertical market specialists. Using the proven system from my best-selling book, Anyone, Not Everyone, we will help you to, number one, choose the perfect vertical market for you if you don't already have one. Number two, build trust and authority in the vertical. Number three, create a predictable revenue growth plan so you can dominate the market with certainty. Join other ambitious agency founders ready to escape the generalist trap. We start in early March and only 12 spots are available to ensure you have an amazing experience. Visit CoreyQuinn.com/DSA. That's CoreyQuinn.com/DSA to learn more about the next cohort that's starting soon. Now back to the show. You mentioned you left at right around early COVID or before COVID.
That's right.
Looking back now with the sort of the benefit of perspective, would you say you waited too long to leave, or did you leave too early? Like, what are your thoughts?
Good question. I think I got really lucky and left at the right time. I've been blessed to work with such great people at Scorpion and to have a friend like Rustin who set us up for success. We made him very successful, but he also shared that with us, which was great. I was ready. I was as prepared as I was ever going to be. I was in my later 30s, and I realized that if I didn't go do what I was going to do right then, I wasn't totally certain that I would come back around to that same decision. And so it was important for me to just say, you know what, jump. It was time. And that was a very, very emotional, very tough conversation. And, shed some tears and a lot of hugs. And, I'm still very, very close with all the guys over there. I love them to death. I'm not a bad word to say about them. They try really, really hard to be best in class, is the truth.
Have you found, as a result of going out on your own, that you've been able to find more time to invest in your family and to really have more of a, lack of a better term, more of a balanced perspective as it relates to work and then other aspects of life?
Yeah, I really have. I mean, I'm actually sitting in my home right now. I get to work from home, and in about an hour, I get to go pick my kids up from school, and then we've got baseball practice tonight, and we're gonna go out to dinner. I have a little bit more me time to invest in them. And, I've still got some young ones, and we enjoy our time together. And so the work-life balance for me is very, very important. But you also need to have that drive, that hunger, that you really want to help your clients and help them succeed. So it's funny because I kind of have a little bit of a switch where I can shut off when it's family time. I know how to compartmentalize very, very well. I've been doing it for a long time. But when it's go time, it's go time. Like, if we need to come up with a strategy to go help a firm, we're head down, we're moving. And yes, I will work into the night once the kids go down sometimes. But at this stage, I definitely have a whole lot more, kind of work-life balance than I did before.
Let's talk about that, those first couple, maybe year or two, during going into COVID. The whole world's very uncertain, right? A lot of craziness happening. All of a sudden, you're now a solo. I imagine you were just bootstrapping just yourself at that point. Had you brought on Daniel, or was it just you at that point?
Yeah, so we bootstrapped the whole thing, and
Yeah.
again, terrifying. You're burning through your savings. I had a massive advantage because I knew, one, how to sell, but two, I had thousands of clients. The trouble was they were Scorpion clients, and I wasn't trying to go poke the bear, And I'm like, those are my buddies too. So I was very blessed where there were some clients that were just going to go with me no matter where I ended up going. They're like, Brandon, wherever you're going, I'm going with you. Let's go. So I had a very, very tight knit client base that did come with me.
Great.
And then I had the advantage of being able to go and create revenue. That was something that I was very, very good at. So Daniel and I had a very random run-in. He and I went to the same gym, funny enough. And it was one morning at about 10:30 in the morning when both of us should have been at work, and neither of us knew that we had left Scorpion. And I was like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And then we went out and had coffee, and very quickly realized that his skill set and mine matched up pretty well because he's a brilliant advertising mind. He's a PPC master for paid advertising campaigns and helping attorneys get what they need. He's second to none in my books. I got very lucky to have him quickly because I had campaigns that needed fulfillment.
I was wondering about that, right? You're the sales guy, right?
I've been so far removed from fulfillment for so many years that my clients they would have ran for the hills, and I would have told them to do the same if it was just me. Yeah. So luckily, I was able to get connected up with Daniel, and then very quickly we were able to get introduced to some really, really wonderful people who are kind of our core at our business here at Marketing 6.
You decided to bring him on as a partner. What was the reason why you brought him as a partner versus, let's say, just a well-compensated employee? And would that be something you would advise other folks to do?
I would have to think about it a little bit, but I can tell you it's an easy answer in one respect. He was the right partner for me because I wanted him 100% bought in, 100%. And yeah, I could have just gone and done it myself and then started hiring and keeping it that way just to keep it all myself. But this wasn't a game of how do I stack the chips and keep them all to myself. I've had some success in my career. I've gotten to this point. And one of the things that I do in my agency, which is not very common, is we have a revenue share. So every single dollar that we make profit on gets shared with the team, and that's something that I realize a lot of agencies go, "Wait, what?" Yeah. I've had plenty of conversations where they go, "You are ridiculous for doing that." I'm like, "Yeah, but why should I be the only one to benefit from all of the years of hard work it takes to build an agency?"
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about, if you're going to bring on a partner, you want someone who is committed, right? If you're leaving not cushy, but a well-paying position, you've been there for a long time, you're in a rhythm to go do something on your own, very risky. Having someone else who is also taking on some risk can be a good way to go.
It is, and it's having that emotional support as well, and having a partner like we would. We were working out of it was like we were working back out of a bedroom again. It was COVID time, so that made sense. But it was very humbling to be back in that situation and then have to kind of rebuild it all back up. But again, being in the position that I was in and having the relationships and the connections and great people around me, it's been such a blessing.
So you have a unique perspective as an agency owner now because you have a background in sales specifically, and you sold to the same people I imagine you're selling to today back at Scorpion. So you had all that history coming in. Then you have Daniel coming in to help with the execution of the campaigns. At what point did you decide to actually hire a sales team to come support you? What are maybe some tips that agency owners should keep in mind when hiring salespeople?
Yeah, I'll tell you how I got there and then what we did. So we had a leg up because we didn't need a sales or revenue generating machine because I could do it. Yeah. And in the earlier days, and as the agency was adding some clientele and the revenue was increasing. It was pretty easy because we also didn't need a lot. We needed slow but steady growth. That was all we needed. And there was a point where certain things were, we couldn't take on 5 clients at once. We just couldn't do it. Yeah. We were just a small group. And as we started adding pieces, I really started enjoying getting back to working with my client side. I really started enjoying that piece again, which was very fulfilling for me. And it checked that box and it kind of reinforced that idea of like doing this and going out on my own was the right decision to make for me. And as I was doing that, I was realizing that I don't have enough time to do everything. And, to your point, and in your book a lot, you talk about, like founder-led sales, and, at a certain point, you have to transition. Well, I had worked and trained umpteen, I have no idea how many sales guys over the years, and had a big sales team, and that was something I was also very, very experienced in. So I decided, I was like, yeah, let's just go bring someone in. And finding the right person who is a good fit personality wise. Obviously, people talk about culture. We are all remote, so it's a little bit more removed. But if you have to interact with them all day, every day, even if it is virtually, you still want to enjoy that interaction. So finding someone that you really enjoy working with is key, because you're going to be talking to them a lot, especially on the sales side. So I went out and added my first salesperson, and he had a experience in the space and had come from the legal marketing space as well. And then I added a couple more, and so we have a very lean sales team, but they're very effective and they've been in the space for a long time. They're they're hand trained from me, so I like the way they do it because that's the way I do it. But it's very, very fulfilling to watch them kind of play the game the right way.
Hey, it's Corey. I wanted to take a quick break from the show to say that if you're an agency owner looking for a strategic and reliable white label partner, you should check out E2M. They offer website design, WordPress development, e-commerce solutions, SEO, PPC, and content writing, and they are trusted by over 300 agencies. You can check out E2M's transparent and flexible pricing model at e2msolutions.com/the Deep Specialization Podcast. For limited time, E2M is offering a special 20% discount for the Deep Specialization Podcast listeners on your first month. Go check them out. Now back to the show. What other attributes or qualities would you say are important in hiring a salesperson? Then maybe for someone who doesn't have your background in sales, right? Someone who is trying to just hire a really good salesperson. Like what should they hire for?
Well, I'll share some of my thoughts and insights. And like you, Corey, I've read every sales book imaginable. I've been coached by some unbelievable talents. I've listened to every sales podcast under the sun. And it's funny because at this stage of my career, having done sales for most of my life, I look for some interesting things. The one thing that's almost impossible to train for and train is drive and hunger, right? You want someone who is hungry, and it's so important to find someone who is hungry, but at the same time, smart. And at the same time, they need to be humble. And, a lot of people lean on this idea that salespeople need to be cocky and arrogant and larger than life and, whatever this idea. I disagree. I wholly disagree, because if you care enough and you're smart, that Venn diagram of humble, hungry, and smart, if you can get a good blend of that, maybe leaning a little bit more towards hungry, that's your guy. That's your gal.
Yeah. What do you say about those salespeople who come into an agency and then sell a bunch of bad deals?
I love that you said that, because that happens all the time. It does. It even happened with some of my guys, because the first thing that most salespeople do when they get into an agency is they just go grab all of the low hanging fruit. There's like, oh, I can get this deal and this deal and this deal and this deal because, and then it makes them feel really good and look really good because they're generating all this revenue potentially. And what they don't see is what they're throwing over the wall and to actually fulfill on that and create a good relationship that's going to help this business out or this law firm out is so hard to do when it's not the right fit. So you need, that's where the smarts in that diagram have to come into it. You need someone who can think with, would this be a good fit, not only for us, but for this client? Are we the right fit for them? And I've heard almost every agency owner on this podcast specifically talk about this. You got to cut them loose. Like you have to. It's in their best interest and yours to sever that relationship. So yeah, you got to be careful.
You have the benefit of coming from a sales background, but many agency founders who are trying to get out of this founder-led role, they want to hire for the right salesperson. What should, in addition to what you shared around the right person, have to have drive and hunger and smart and humble, from a systems or a process perspective, like what would be ideal for the agency owner to build before the salesperson steps in? Like what has to be there?
I would say who your ideal client avatar really is, like who it should be. Which are the ones that churn and why do they churn? What ones stick around for years and years and years and are really, really happy and would love to send referrals to you and why? And so as an agency owner, if you can identify who those people are, or what types of people they are. Is it this type of attorney? Is it this type of size of a law firm? Is it this type of a market? Is it a top tier market? Like, do you want to be going after the Houstons, the New Yorks, the Los Angeles markets, or do you want to be going after Bakersfield or Plano, Texas, or submarkets, whatever you want to call them? Identifying that is very, very important. And then if you want to help your salesperson or whoever's going to be stepping in that role, getting them a list of those people to start targeting would be very, very advantageous for you to do.
Yeah, maybe even send them some gifts.
Cookies, who knows? Delicious cookies.
Delicious, yes. That's super helpful. So now you have the agency is how big? How many employees do you have?
So we're about 30 employees, about 27, 28 employees.
Amazing. And you've built up this agency. Your primary focus is attorneys and law firms. I'm assuming that that's the primary focus. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
And then what's the future for Marketing 6? Like what's ahead?
Yeah, good question. We have always been kind of slow and steady on the growth side, but that was done intentionally.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you look at the numbers and the growth. And year over year, we keep growing faster than even I want us to. But it's a great problem, and I'm not even trying to brag. It's just you bring on a couple really good accounts, and then you have to backfill and add more on your fulfillment team and really smart people on the advertising side and the social media side and the SEO side to make sure that everyone is getting the type of relationship that they need and seeing the results from it. So I would say growth-wise for us, we'll probably grow by another 40% this year, if I had to guess, which is, again, a little nerve-wracking, but I think we're ready for it.
What's the limiter on that, on your growth? Is it your fulfillment or on the sales side, would you say? Like, are the sales opportunities there, or just being able to slow roll the...
It's unlimited. Yeah, it's unlimited on the sales opportunity side. There's so many firms out there. The space has definitely gotten more saturated, right? It's kind of a red ocean, if you want to think about it that way. But there are also differentiators and things that a lot of these clients aren't getting from other agencies. And so a lot of agencies come in with the kind of the same playbook that all the other agencies have.
Sure. Yeah.
And it makes sense. They're like, hey, these guys are making a lot of money and these guys are making a lot of money. I want to make a lot of money. So there you go. But it's funny because, when you have a different view of what you're doing and you kind of roll that back to your why, like why you're doing it is so important. How do I scale this to employees and then make $100 million and then cash out? Like if that's the game you want to play, it's right there in front of you. You can go do it. It's just not the game I want to play. What I want to do is I want to have kind of a boutique, catered, curated agency that works with firms. And I kind of, the way I like to say it is, I like to help the best attorneys get the cases that need the best attorneys. That's all I like to do. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So in the world of digital marketing, the space that we live in, one of the big challenges that many agencies face is that they're excellent media buyers that do really great job at delivering high quality potential cases, right? Or leads or whatever you want to call it. But then the client frankly sucks at intake. And of course, then the agency gets fired because they don't see the value. Does that happen in your world? Does that happen? Okay. So how do you deal with that in your world? Like your version of it may be different than a dental attorney or a dental agency, but in your world, how do you handle that?
So intake is everything. You can be a great agency, but if your intake is not very good and you haven't tightened that up as a law firm, you are wasting so much money, and you're hurting your credibility too, because if you have someone on the front lines who isn't caring, does not have good bedside manner, is a maybe so busy they don't know what to do and they're rushed and they try and get people on the phone. These people needed your help potentially, and that is just a horrible experience. So we immerse ourselves in it. We throw ourselves at it. My team goes, okay, as soon as we bring a client on, we want to know exactly who's answering the phone. We want to hear them on the phone. We want to coach them if they're terrible, or potentially get them moved off to another position and get someone else in there who can do it right, or refer them to someone who can help them with that intake, because it is vital for the success of your campaign. Vital.
What about these firms who will do sort of the soup to nuts, do the marketing, do the intake, do the handoff of a fully qualified case? Is that something you've ever considered doing, and why would you or why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, I mean we've looked at it for sure, and it's interesting because I don't think that it's something I want to do, is the truth, because I know what I like doing, I know what I'm good at, and I would rather have a little bit of separation on that front. The people that do that, and I've struggled to find someone who does it soup to nuts really, really well and package them up and hand them off, like from the marketing advertising side and top of the funnel, right? And driving those leads down, driving those cases down and say, cool, here's a great case. Because if there were a lot of agencies out there who were really good at that, all the rest of us would be out of business.
Right.
All of us. Like we would all be out of business.
They're taking all the risk. They're just basically saying to a law firm, just pay me a fixed fee per qualified case.
Yeah, that's right. And it kind of goes back to, if we're looking at this from a like roll it all the way back, someone at some point in their life, something bad happened and they needed help. And they needed, whether they knew what to do or who to go find, a lot of these people out there, actually most of the people, have no clue who a good attorney is or who to turn to. And there are some unbelievably talented, caring, amazing law firms out there that will help you get the absolute best result for whatever happened. And if you're a breadwinner, father, construction worker, and your leg got crushed and you can't work, what do? And then you have this ocean of millions of potential, results and Google, search results, and more cash for your crash guy. Like you have all of that type of, stuff that's out there, all that noise that's out there. And it's my job to take an attorney who can help that person and make sure that they get connected. That's what I do. That's what I love. That's my why as to why I do this. It's, if I can take a firm that is really good at helping people, I'm all in. If you're not, you're probably not going to be my client, is the truth. And
so are your salespeople as convincing as you just were to prospective clients?
They better be. I don't know. Otherwise, we have a coaching call.
People want to buy that, right? That's what they're buying is that level of your why. Like they found someone in you who has a very deep calling to provide them with amazing cases. Like, how do you transfer that to your sales team?
Well, I think the more we're around it, the more you feel it, and You included in this, by the way, Corey, because the things that you've done in your career, like we've made lots of people lots of money.
Yeah.
I one time jokingly had a conversation. Someone was like, "How many millionaires have you made?" And I was like, "It's a very good question," and I couldn't even count. There's so many, and I know that sounds crazy, but that is what we do, and we will help a lot of these people who are trying to get their name out there, and we'll make them a ton of money, and they become uber rich, which is awesome. But why? Like we could go help a ton more attorneys go get very, very rich, and that sounds kind of just not great. Like it's like, yeah, you could do it, but at the end of the day, if you don't have your reason for doing it, and if it's only money and scale and EBITDA and I'm going to take an exit, I mean that's awesome. I love that for you, and go do it. And by the way, a lot of the agency guys who've been on this podcast are friends of mine. I know them personally, and they are killers. They are so good at what they do. I am wonderfully impressed with the amount of, just how good they are at doing what they do. But I would rather go a layer or two deeper.
And clearly, as the leader, as the founder, your sales team are gonna draft off of you. Worked for Rustin over at Scorpion. He works very, very hard. I worked harder at Scorpion than I'd ever worked in my entire life because that was the tone. Work hard, play hard. 100%.
Right. Yeah.
You always got to go above and beyond all that stuff that he kind of led the charge. And I think as sort of the cultural center of that business, he set that tone. And I think the tone that I'm getting from you is that there is a deeper meaning besides just making money here, right? And I think clearly your salespeople, your account managers, everyone on board is going to follow suit. So that's a sign of a good leader, I think.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's how I feel about it. And if you're in this space for as long as you and I have been in, it's easy to get very jaded. Yeah. So easy. Yeah. And we see a lot of interesting things, but it all kind of rolls back to if you have a strong enough purpose that is meaningful, that you can feel good about yourself, helping people who really need help get to the best people to get that help. I mean, there's something there.
What would be your parting advice, thinking about the audience who listens to this podcast, who maybe are in that corporate job, maybe they've been in there for 15 years or whatever it was, or probably like 20 years almost for you at that point, and making good money, but still there's that thing inside of you or inside of them in this case where they're just not quite living the life that they want to live. Like, what would be your advice to them as they're thinking through this option of going out on their own?
Yeah, I would say you'll never do anything scarier, but you'll also be more fulfilled than you could ever imagine. And there's some magic in that. And, all the cliches about failure and, you never fail until you just stop getting back up. A lot of that's true. And in the beginning, it's going to look grim at times, unless you are just the luckiest person in the world and nothing ever goes wrong. And that's definitely not me. But I'm a bit of a bull in a china shop sometimes, and I break things and I have to go fix things and apologize profusely, but I am always willing to go say I'm sorry and then go fix it. So, that idea of like, could I go do this? Absolutely, you can. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. And if you are in that position where you're looking, maybe you've been in the space for a long time, you have a lot of really good contacts and a lot of really good people who care about you, start creating what that vision would look like and what you would do different and why you would do it differently is the key. And if you kind of connect those dots and start taking those steps, I don't know how you fail. There's just so much good to be had out there. And listen, do not mince my words. It is hard to do what a lot of us do, but it's very, very fulfilling.
That's beautiful. Last question for you. What's your motivation?
Yeah, so the easy answer is definitely my kids and my family and all that kind of stuff. And I definitely feel that way about it. At the end of the day, I want more time with them because, I'm getting older and they're getting older, and then they got to go live their lives. And I want as much time as I possibly can get my hands on. But I want to put a little spin on it for you because because I could have that same situation doing something else though. I could do a lot of other things and have lots of time with my kids. And so why do I do this is really, I think, what I wanted to get to the root of. And it's because I want to be able to help people get to the right attorney, get to the right person who can change their life. And if that's all that I did, and if it's less clients, less marketing dollars, whatever it is, but I can actually do that, I'm going to be a happy camper.
That is very genuine. And that's obviously a big factor why you've been successful. So I think that's beautiful. Where can people find you if they want to reach out and talk to you, learn more about you and your firm, your journey? Where's a good place for people to find you?
Yeah, so we're all over the place. I mean, marketing6.com, obviously. We're really, really heavy players in the social media space. You know, we do a lot of work on TikTok. I'm like, listen, where are people? Where's the attention? That's all we're after. We're looking for people's attention. Where are they spending that time? And it's primarily on social media. So we've got some very, very unique kind of different offerings that a lot of other agencies just don't touch because social media is tough to scale. That's why they stay out of it. But if you do it right and you're very good at what you do, you can have some unbelievable success. And we were kind of early adopters on the TikTok advertising side of things, and it's proven to be really, really, really awesome. But yeah, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, online, or you can just email me directly if you want to. It's just Brandon@marketing6.com.
Man, it's SIX, right?
Yeah, it's spelled out. That's right. Marketing SIX. Exactly.
Well, thanks again for coming on. You have such a cool history. I love that you got to share it with us. So much inspiration, and I'm so excited for what you've built and what you're building. So thanks again for coming on, dude.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Corey.
Thanks for tuning in to the Deep Specialization Podcast. If you haven't checked out my best-selling book, Anyone, Not Everyone, you can download the audiobook for free right now by going to anyoneNotEveryone.com. That's anyoneNotEveryone.com. And finally, a special thank you to our sponsor, E2M. We'll see you in the next episode.